Jake here for American Muscle, and today I'm taking a look at the MBRP Armorlite Muffler Delete Axle Vac exhaust fitting 2010 to 2015 V6 Camaros. If you're looking to uncork the exhaust on your V6 Camaro and give it a nice injection of personality, MBRP has got you covered here. This axle vac is a great choice that's going to give you more sound without requiring you to spend a ton of money. And more sound you will get. This is MBRP's street profile, and as you heard from the clips at the start of the video, does make the V6 sound a little bit more rowdy. We're going to give this a very strong 3 out of 5 on our loudness meter, so it's not necessarily going to get all of your neighbors angry, but they're definitely going to know something is different about your car. MBRP has made a name for themselves by producing great sounding exhausts at a really reasonable price, and that's exactly what this axle vac system does. Now, as the name implies, this is going to eliminate your stock suitcase mufflers at the end of your exhaust system with these 2 sections of piping. These are just straight through. However, since this is only an axle vac, it's going to keep the rest of your system intact. So your catalytic converters, resonators, etc. It's not going to alter the emission system, but you're going to get a lot more sound coming out of the back. Eliminating those mufflers really goes a long way to uncork that V6, and it makes it sound much more racy without getting too ricey. It's got a nice little rasp to it, some pops and burbles on the overrun, but nothing too obtrusive or obnoxious. Personally, I think it makes it sound a bit more like a race car, something you'd expect to hear wailing down the straightaway at somewhere like Laguna Seca. Definitely much more aggressive than your sedate factory system, but still something that's tolerable for a car that's driven daily. It's one of those mods that will probably change the way you drive a little bit. Since you're gonna wanna hear the noise, you're probably gonna find yourself matting the throttle quite a bit more than you're used to. Now, inside the cabin, of course, you're also gonna have increased sound levels. Again, nothing too over the top though, should still be tolerable if you do drive your Camaro every day. You might just wanna turn up the volume on the stereo a little bit. The whole thing is finished off with these 2 really nice 4.5-inch polished tips. It gives a really cool visual update to go with that better sound. And you got the MBRP logo embossed right in there as well. It's a setup that's gonna look and sound the way you might have hoped the car would have from the factory. Now, as we dive into the construction, keep in mind that this is a more budget-friendly setup, and as such, it's constructed using mandrel-bent aluminized steel. Now, that material is best suited to drier climates or vehicles that don't get to see a ton of wet weather or especially road salt. However, it's still going to last you some time. It just won't be as resistant to rust or corrosion as 409 or 304 stainless. However, it doesn't carry the price of 409 or 304 either. The tips though, those are made from T304 stainless, so these are going to be very resistant to rust and corrosion and should have no trouble staying looking this cool for quite some time. Coming in at about $325, this is one of the least expensive exhausts for this gen of Camaro. It's a great price for a great sound, and even though you're not getting the highest quality of materials, I still think this one is a worthwhile buy because it's going to keep your budget in check, it's not going to have you spending a ton of money, and it's still going to make your car sound pretty darn cool. Installation is going to get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should expect this to take you about 2 hours to complete. Now, this is going to require you to cut off your factory mufflers, as Chevy didn't make those bolt-on parts from the factory. However, it is only those 2 cuts, one on either side, and you can accomplish this at home without much fuss. Once you've got the stock mufflers off, these are just going to slide right on with the included clamps. And you can always clamp your factory mufflers back on later, should you need to return your car to stock. But we don't want to talk about stock, we want to make some noise. So with that, let's go ahead and hand it over to one of our AM customers who's going to walk you through the install process.
All right, so these are all the tools we used for this installation. We used a tape measure to measure how far we need to cut it off, safety glasses when we were cutting, an impact tightening up the clamps, Freol to loosen the hangers from the rubber things. And the cutoff wheel, the grinder we used to cut off part of the old exhaust. 3/8 drive ratchet, an 8mm Allen socket, and a 15mm 3/8 socket.
3/8 drive socket.
3/8 drive socket. And we also used a Craftsman Sawzall with a metal blade to finish cutting off the old stock exhaust because the cutting wheel doesn't reach all the way through. Those are all the tools we used for this build. We also used a jack and a pair of jack stands. You always want to use 2 so you have the most support for your car while you're jacking it up. And you never want to just be under the car with just the jack, because you can't trust just the jack. So to begin, we're going to jack up the car from the back end so we can reach the bolts and undo the brackets for the exhaust. But to start with, you're going to want to chock the front wheels if you have a rear-wheel drive car, because otherwise it can roll back. So you want to make sure you chock the wheels good. So on this is a 2013 Camaro LS, and on mine there's a mount for the rear differential right here, and this is a solid point to where you can jack it up from. So you have to find some spot on your car that you can do that on. Then you just want to start jacking up the car slowly, and you want to make sure you have your jack stands ready to put under the car as soon as you have it up high enough to where you can reach under it, because you don't want to go under the car with just the jack supporting you. All right, next you want to slide your jack stands after you have a jack. Somewhere where they'll fit and where they'll support the vehicle's weight well. Mine doesn't really want to fit in here. Put it right there. And that should be good enough to support the weight. So you have the jack, then make sure you have 2 jack stands on either side supporting it. Alright, now we're going to be taking some Freol. You can use any sort of lubricant that you have. And you're going to be spraying these right here to get them loose so that you can pop the hangers out of the rubber bushing. You don't need too much. Alright, so you're going to want to measure 1.5 inch or 1.25 inches from the weld on the muffler out.
Yep.
And then mark it, and then you're going to cut it with some sort of cut-off wheel or something. Alright, now you're going to cut it off with the grinder.
No? What? Oh, you got it in there?
Yeah. It's off.
They're heavy.
Alright, so here's the old muffler and the exhaust tip of the stock part. And that's where we cut it off. And then here is the new MBRP straight piped to the axle back. And then the new exhaust tip compared to the old one. So you're gonna want to slide the clamp onto your new pipe
Prior to installing the pipe.
prior to installing the pipe onto the old pipe. Tighten down the bolt.
You're gonna need an impact.
Alright, now you're gonna want to tighten the bolts to the clamp on the new exhaust to the old exhaust. You're gonna use a 15mm socket for that. You're gonna want to tighten them pretty tight. And do the same thing for the other side. Alright, so now you're gonna want to tighten the tips
Exhaust tips.
Exhaust tips on. And there's a clamp back there with an Allen socket that you're gonna need to use.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the MBRP Armor-Lite Muffler Delete Axleback Exhaust fitting the 2010 to 2015 V6 Camaro. Thanks for watching, and as always, for all things Camaro, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.